Hello, and welcome to another edition of Rail Rangers on the Road. The Midwest Rail Rangers, our 501c3 nonprofit organization, presents onboard educational programs across the Midwest. You may have caught us on the South Shoreline, between Chicago and South Bend, Indiana, aboard the Sky Parlor car at the Wisconsin Great Northern, on an Amtrak charter organized by the 20th Century Railroad Club of Chicago, on private rail excursions featuring heritage equipment, and at various outreach events such as Train Fest and Mad City Rail. In March of 2020, the coronavirus sidelined most of our programs. After taking a few months off, we returned with virtual programs, taking you to exciting rail destinations across Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, and Wisconsin. With 2021 now here, we hope to begin the transition back to doing in-person programs. During the months ahead, though, we will continue to bring you new virtual programs as well. So sit back and relax and enjoy another edition of Rail Rangers on the Road.
Hi, my name is Keith Coleman. I'm a member of the Chicago Northwestern Historical Society. We're here in front of the Racine, Wisconsin train station, built in 1901, designed by the architectural firm Frost & Granger. They designed over 375 buildings for the Chicago Northwestern Railway, most of them train stations. This one was built in 1901. It's been open as a train station from 1901 till it was closed in 1971 when Amtrak took over. And then it was sold to private interests around the year 1990. In 2005, the city of Racine bought it, and it was restored as a state of Wisconsin Department of Transportation project. And now it's used as a waiting room and center for the bus transit in Racine.
Thanks.
Okay. Then I'll go by the front door.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. This is really cool. As I was mentioning, we live not very far away in South Milwaukee, and we appreciate. I've actually never been here, so this will kind of be a fun.
Ready?
All right, yeah, let's head on in.
Come on in.
Oh wow.
The first thing you'll notice in here is the bright colors and the sunlight. These are the original colors of the building. The walls were orange, which in 1901, that was a new high-tech color. Isthmus Architects of Madison did the interior design and the structural renovation designs for the building, and I was on that team, and we analyzed the paint chips and found out, to our surprise, the original color was orange.
Which is weird because you think Milwaukee Road, right?
Yeah. Yeah, other features in this building include terrazzo marble tile floor. This is the original floor from 1901.
Oh wow.
It's got the original ceiling. When that was restored, all they did on this was cleaned it. They just dusted it. It hasn't really been touched. Other restoration work that was included, all the windows were rebuilt, the plaster was redone, all of the woodwork all around the building was redone.
So is there a reason why they chose that orange? Because, like I said, I would think that
because it was the original color.
Okay.
And this restoration was done as an original restoration, so it would look the way it looked in 1901.
Any idea in 1901 why they picked that color though?
Because it was a new high-tech.
Oh, okay.
You know how colors come and go.
So it's supposed to be like, oh, we're new and inventive, and
Exactly.
oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got the latest and greatest.
Okay.
Back at the time, Chicago Northwestern's slogan was the best of everything. And this building was one of maybe a dozen depots that was built that year. And they were all this really nice brick and oak and marble floored type stations. Similar sister stations to this one are in Lake Forest, Illinois, and in Madison, Wisconsin on West Washington Street. That was a Milwaukee Road depot, but it looks very similar to this one.
I was thinking we got a tour of the Lake Forest one for one of our programs earlier, and I kind of see some of the similarities.
Let's come on over here. This end of the building, this middle section was the lounges and restrooms, women on this side, men on that side. It's now been divided, and there's storage and mechanical in there, and vending, but the restrooms are still there. At one time, these were equipped with rocking chairs and settees. The men's room had spittoons in it. Right here, there was a water fountain, and that water fountain was made of marble. It had a lion's head on it, and the water would trickle out of the lion's head into the bowl. And there was also they called it wasn't a bubbler then. It was just a thing that would shoot up water. But the 1908 flu pandemic caused this to be changed, and that's when Kohler invented the bubbler, so you didn't put your mouth on it anymore. That was a hygiene sanitary thing that came about after the Spanish flu. That was removed. Some people think there used to be a fireplace here because of the
You could almost,
There was no fireplace in here.
Really?
That's not part of it. Other neat features are, if you look up there, there's that medallion thing. When this depot was bought by the city, there was only one half of one of those left.
Oh, wow.
And they took the part that was left and they recast it, and they recast all these in plaster for the restoration. All the windows have beaded glass above and around to give a nice diffused look. These light fixtures are not the originals, but they were designed specifically for this depot, and they're based on a Chicago and Northwestern prototype, but they were modified to be LED fixtures.
Any idea what happened to the bubbler that was?
I'm sure, it was probably replaced in the 50s with kind of a ceramic type.
No one saved it, or it's kind of floating around. So if you know where it is, give him a call.
yeah, for sure. We talked about making a reproduction, but a little bit too expensive.
So does the city own the station then?
Yes.
Is that okay?
The city owns all the property around here. That's where the buses come in. People come in here and wait for their transfer.
Okay.
You can get a regional bus to Milwaukee or Washington.
Oh, okay. Nice. Very cool.
This door over here. These are the doors that will lead you to the platform, to the tracks. At one time, this was double track. Some of the fastest trains in the world went through here, stopped here back in the 1950s. City of Milwaukee 400. Traveled at speeds of up to 117 miles per hour.
Right out the door.
Yeah.
Was Racine a stop on that train?
Yes.
Oh, so it would stop
It
here.
was a major stop.
Okay.
At the time, Racine was the second largest city in Wisconsin.
Really? I didn't know that. Which track would have been removed? You said the one closest to us?
The westbound.
Oh, okay.
The westbound track was removed. And the platform bricks were removed too, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Wow. Very cool.
Okay, one of the features of this train station is We have the double tracks up front, but instead of having people cross the tracks in front of the trains, it was a busy main line with over 40 trains a day back when this station was built. They built an access tunnel underneath the tracks, just like in Lake Forest. And there's another building on the other side where people can wait, and the stairs come up over there. This tunnel was unfortunately closed off when the railroad sold the depot, but we can at least go down and see some of that area.
Okay, so it's to prevent, I guess, 117 mile an hour trains coming back and forth. It was probably safer to go down, back up the other side than it would be to try to cross the tracks.
To clarify, they didn't go 117
here.
Racine. Speed limit through Racine was 45 miles per hour.
Oh, okay, so even through trains that
even still dangerous across the track.
45 miles an hour, yeah.
So we're in the tunnel underneath the station. This is the access tunnel to get to the other side. As you can see, it's been closed up with a cast concrete wall. That wall is 22 inches thick, so we're not getting through it anytime soon. You'll see it's got the glazed brick. There's some old graffiti here from the 60s still on the walls.
Oh, wow.
That closed off area used to be a large window. There's a big window well there, and then light can shine all the way through the tunnel on both sides.
Wow. That's very, okay.
This tunnel is almost identical to the one that was built in Lake Forest.
So why would they, do you know why they, Lake Forest kept theirs open, but they decided to cement that up?
Because Lake Forest still had passenger service through the commuter line.
Oh.
And people needed to get from one side to the other. But in Lake Forest, it's closed off also.
Yeah.
There's just a door there.
Okay.
It's not open to the public to pass under.
Wow.
So it's just the wall, nothing further, like.
We don't know what's on
We
it.
don't know.
We don't know.
So this would have been you said 71?
We don't know what year it was put in.
Oh, okay.
On the other side, we know the other side is, there's no stairway on the other side.
Okay.
There was a private owner who owned it for a while, and he jackhammered the whole thing and used it as a place to dump concrete.
Oh, okay.
So we know you can't get through on the other side.
There's a mystery.
Have you ever thought about trying to open it up to see what was?
And we've looked at it, but again, it's a 22-inch thick wall with
Very expensive,
Yeah.
if you're even going to try it.
Go back around over here.
I love the 1960s graffiti.
Okay.
Very cool. Careful.
In here, this is the this is the battery room. We're directly underneath the office, and the telegrapher and the phones would be right up above us. But there were batteries in here that kept the communication and signals working.
Wow.
This was also a place where the signal maintainers would maintain their batteries. This closed off area over here is another window well. It had a door on there, and then the signalmen would lower the batteries down, and then they could take them off the shelf there and then fill them with acid or do all their maintenance on it, and then send the components back up.
So for the people who aren't maybe familiar with railroading like we are, what would be the size of, we're talking obviously not AA batteries.
It's a glass jar about this big, maybe a foot square.
So maybe about as big as the humidifier, kind of ish?
Maybe about half that.
Okay. And where would that would be up and down the line? I figure Milwaukee would have their own, right?
Right,
so
wherever the signal territory is based out of Racine, so maybe up as far as 7 Mile Road, maybe as far south as Racine Junction.
Okay.
And they would put those batteries on the little speeder cars, or the hand pump cars, and then they would take them to each crossing where there were electric gates, or they would take them to other signal locations and put the batteries in the underground vaults, and then change them out. They were lead acid batteries.
Okay.
And that was a regular thing. You can also see the way the foundation bends here, and this is where the big window is.
Oh,
so in a minute we'll go up and see the office area from above.
Okay. Was this a 24-hour, 24/7 job down here? look at the to maintain all the batteries.
Yeah.
And then I guess Milwaukee would have their own on the north. Would Kenosha have one of these on the south then probably too, or
Yeah.
potentially
They'd all have some sort of facility.
every 20 miles or so?
Yeah.
Wow. So what do they, I guess not really use it for much now? Are they just potential storage? Is that why they've kept all this pretty much? Or?
Yep, storage.
Okay. If you step down there. Wow. All right. Wow. Well, that was pretty cool. Thank you for the
Yeah, this
look
gate
down there.
wasn't here originally.
Oh, okay.
When the renovation was on, this historic looking reproduction gate was put here just because we don't want people falling over the edge.
That's probably a good thing. We don't want
And
that
we don't want
either.
people going down there. Okay, this is the access to the office of the depot.
Oh, wow.
This space hasn't been renovated and it's being used for
Wow.
storage.
Up a little bit.
At
In
one
here.
time there was a desk here, a large bay window.
So that would have been the ticket.
No, this would be the dispatcher
Oh, okay.
or agent would sit here.
Okay.
This would have been your ticket window. It's been closed off.
Oh,
The
wow.
original ticket windows were removed when this was turned into a freight office.
Okay.
But they would sell tickets here. And then you can see in this corner, see that arch in the brickwork?
Yes. Yeah.
That is where the vault was. And that's where
Oh.
they keep the money. And that's where they would also keep valuables that were shipped in Railway Express.
Okay.
So if you were shipping, and back then they used to ship real bars of gold.
Oh, wow.
And, securities and things that were worth a lot of money, and they'd ship cash, and that was kept in the vault there. Over here, this door is the train order door. So if the dispatcher had to send a message to a train, they would set the semaphores, telling them to stop, and then they would stop here. The engine man or the conductor would get off and come in here, and there was a counter here, and there's a door here, another swinging door here. And this is the train order counter where they would sign for that they had received their orders. And they also had the little sticks that they would hold out train orders.
Oh, yeah, we've seen some of those, yeah.
And they would do that here as well.
Wow. And this would have been last used.
Oh, in early 70s.
Okay. So the renovation, was this going to be something you're thinking about renovating at some point?
Not at this point, because of all the acid fumes from down below.
Oh.
Damaged this floor, so they can't build anything on it right now, and they don't need the space right now, so it's just waiting for redevelopment.
This is
Over
interesting.
Here, this is
Wow.
the signal panel for all the signals.
Oh, wow.
And they could put in like plugs to connect to various signals. These are the signal numbers.
Let's see, a Western Union.
Yeah. And telephone.
Wow. That is a piece of history.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And this room also, you can see it had at one point, it had another ceiling in it.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more closed off.
Wow. Well, I wonder if any of our viewers maybe remember buying a ticket at that window there someday.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe.
Very cool. So that ticket window would have been right here where that bulletin board. Oh, you can kind of see the.
Yeah, just stand up here. You can beautiful thing.
There you go.
This is where the ticket window would have been. This kind of square right here where the terrazzo has been removed and replaced with cement. That's where people would buy their tickets. So they wore out the floor there. So this is a replacement probably done in the 1940s. But yeah, there was a iron gate here and 2 ticket bays. Over here, this is the original
Wow, that's a nice
schedule
poster.
case.
Huh.
I put together that display of the
Oh, you did this.
pictures.
You did a nice display. Wow, very cool.
Various transportation-related things. Some streetcars on this side to honor the transit center, and then the railroad on this side. If you look closely at this picture, you can see that at one time there were brick arches on the ends of the platforms. There were 4 of those brick arches, but they weren't sturdy enough here mechanically, and they started to crack and they crumbled. The arch didn't have enough support through here, so the brick supports broke.
Oh wow.
Where the transit center is now over there, it was originally a park,
Okay.
and that was common for Chicago Northwestern stations to have what they called the railroad park, where if the weather was good, you could go outside and sit out here in the park somewhere while you're waiting for a train.
And I noticed, is this your people are interested in donating or want more information? Is that a good website then, to preservationracine.org? Or
They're related. They helped in some ways donating to the restoration.
okay.
But you can find more information on C&NWHS.org.
Okay. And where, and forgive my lack of knowledge kind of about the Chicago Northwestern. My dad grew up in Lake Bluff, which I know is south of here, and the North Shore line paralleled it. Was did the North Shore parallel the
No.
tracks to Racine, or were they?
About 2 miles west of here.
Oh, to the west.
Yeah.
Okay.
They pass through West Racine.
Okay, so even the old line. Oh no, it was only one line north of North Chicago. That's right. Right, I believe. I think.
Yeah. So this
Okay.
line was built in 1855.
1855. Wow, that's incredible. Very cool. Did you have some questions?
Yeah, so with the restoration, what was the most challenging thing to do?
Stay within budget there was a lot of things that we wanted to do but couldn't do. For example, there used to be double doors here, like storm doors,
Oh,
leaded glass doors with windows up above and on the side lights. And that way, when you open the main door, you didn't get the cold blast into the waiting room. So that was something that we could have done, but or rebuilding the fountain would have been nice also.
where did a lot of the funds come from? The city, the state, or
It
grants?
came from
or-
a state grant.
Oh,
where
okay.
That was part of the transit center.
Oh, okay.
The buses were relocated from a Main Street transfer center just on Monument Square. It was moved over here, and instead of people waiting outdoors, now they get to wait indoors.
Very nice. So for you, what was the most rewarding thing of the restoration?
Probably when I came over, well, the whole thing being a major contributor to it and helping out in any way I could. Probably one of the neatest days was when I came in early in the morning. The sun was beaming in on an
Nice.
August morning, and they had just removed all the plywood off all the restored windows. And for years, this building's been boarded up since about 1975 or so,
Wow.
74. So it was the first time you could see all the light streaming through these windows. It
So
was
kind
incredible.
of like it's coming back alive.
Yes, yes.
Did you, in the renovation, did you find any interesting objects, like historical objects from like
We
hidden in
found-
the walls or something
Yeah, we
kind of cool?
found- When the desk was pulled out, we found paperwork, I think from about 1946. It was just part of a switch list, and it had cars of Coke from the lakefront on the Milwaukee Road being transferred at Racine Junction
Oh.
to the Chicago Northwestern. I think it was a set of 5 cars. That was interesting. There was also a directory of industries on the Chicago Northwestern, and we found that old directory book.
Okay. Very cool.
And that's now being held in the C&NW archives.
Are they thinking about putting a museum here at any point, maybe?
No.
Or no? Wow.
No, this is the transit center.
Just a transit
What
center.
we're hoping for someday is to have a rail connection to Chicago and Milwaukee.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I personally moved to South Milwaukee in 2003 from Chicago, and I know they were going to have the KRM, Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee, and it almost took off. Would this have been I guess it was originally supposed to be run by Metra or some kind of extension of Metra?
It was going to be run by a Wisconsin agency. There was going to be there was a taxing authority passed by the legislature.
I remember that.
But when Governor Walker took over, that was one of the first things that got cut. So
Yeah.
those funds were then transferred into highway projects, and the rail fell away. All of Racine's downtown renovation program and redevelopment is all based on this area becoming kind of a commuter hub for people who want to work in Waukegan, North Chicago, Evanston, and downtown Chicago, or going the other way if people want to work in, say, South Milwaukee or south side of Milwaukee, or right in downtown Milwaukee. You could park in that big parking lot over there, or ride a bus and then take a train and be up in Milwaukee in 20 minutes instead of 45 minutes on the freeway.
Yeah. And so this would have been the actual station used by the KRM,
Yep.
which kind of makes me sad because look how beautiful the station we would have had on that line. I was hoping that was going to come to fruition. I thought that would be a great way to go, because then I guess you would were they going to be separate trains from Milwaukee to Kenosha?
Well, there was talk that there would be a cross-platform transfer either at Kenosha or Waukegan.
Okay, so
And that's, interestingly, that's how it was done back in 1855.
Really?
When the original Chicago and Milwaukee Railroad was running.
Oh, wow.
So trains ran to near the state line or near Waukegan, and then you got off one train, got on the other, and continued.
So it would have been, and then of course people say, well, why do we need it? But it'd be a lot cheaper than the Amtrak, and so many more intermediate stops than just Glenview and Sturtevant and the airport. You could, like you said, take it to Ravinia. That's one of my parents' favorite concert venues down in Lake County, the Cook County border there, and so there would have been a lot of options. So is there any? Do you ever see there's any chance of that ever coming back, perhaps, or
Not at this point.
not? Is it totally dead now?
Yeah, all the plans have been made. Everything is sitting on the shelf. It just needs the funding.
Okay, so that's kind of
Special interests worked really hard in this area to shoot that down.
Yeah. All right.
This picture up here is a reproduction of the original advertising poster from the 400,
Wow.
which was the passenger streamliner which operated between Chicago and the Twin Cities, beginning as a diesel back in 1939. This print from 1940 was scanned from an original, and then it was restored by a student at Gateway Technical College, digitally restored, printed, and then Preservation Racine paid to have that framed, and I put it up there.
Wow.
These pictures were framed and hung in Chicago Northwestern stations all across the Midwest. So every station had one of those back in 1940. So we made a reproduction and put it back in here to honor that history of the 400. It was called the 400 because the train went 400 miles in 400 minutes. Actually, later on the train went 400 miles in 375 minutes. Okay, we're at the south end of the Racine platform. We're on the east side. This relic or ruins that you're looking at, this is where the standpipe was. This is where steam engines heading south would pull up, and there was a big pipe here, L-shaped pipe, and they would rotate it over the tender and dump water, a couple thousand gallons of water right into the steam engine's tender. So that's what this is down here. In about 1910, It replaced the water tower that was over here in the transit center where those two people are standing. There was a water tower over there, and it ran off city water. Prior to that, though, there was a wooden water tower there that used water taken from the Root River.
Oh.
It was pumped all the way over here and then put in the steam locomotives.
So, question with this: how far? You said so. Train going to Chicago, which is that direction. How far could they get by filling up with water here in Racine? Do you know how far? Where would be the next?
On what, if it was a passenger train, it usually wouldn't get water here. They would get water at the beginning of the run. This is more for freight trains.
Okay.
Or the local switching.
Oh, okay.
This area over here, which is now a large commuter parking lot, that was a classification yard for the north side.
Oh.
And for the east side with the line heading downtown. So back when the steeple was built in 1901, you would have seen a lot of flat cars loaded with JIK steam engines and threshers in here. This is where they would start their journey out to the prairies or wherever they were headed.
Oh, wow.
Northern forests. This large red brick building you see over here was Western Printing. In the 1950s and 60s, this is just the west end of it, but it was the largest printing and lithographing plant in the world.
Wow.
And that large building there was the paper receiving area. There were 2 tracks that went in there, and boxcars were unloaded with various grades of paper. Paper came from Ontario, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Quebec, Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and it was all brought in here. At one time, the Western Publishing Company was shipping out maybe 4 cars of finished materials every day, 4 rail cars, and they would take in as many as 8 boxcars full of paper every day.
Wow.
All right, so it definitely looks like these tracks are still in use today, hopefully. About how many trains a day go through here?
There's about 4 trains a day. 2 coal trains, an empty and a loaded, heading up to Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
Where are those coming from?
They either come from Wyoming or Pennsylvania.
Oh, from there directly to Oak Creek.
Yeah, and they blend the coal and up at Oak Creek. There's also a rock train that carries limestone from Ives, Wisconsin, which is 3 miles north of here, and it takes it to Upton, Illinois, on the Milwaukee subdivision. This line is called the Kenosha subdivision. It had 2 tracks. It has a platform on the other side. That's the westbound platform for people heading to points north. At one time, there was a stub track right here, side track, where they would keep a locomotive and baggage express and mail cars, and a passenger train would pull in, let off people, pick up people, then it would pause, pull ahead a little bit, and then the switcher would come out and push and put express cars right on the back of the train. The locomotive would go back to the siding, and then away they'd go. And that was a way to put mail and express on the trains quickly. Racine shipped a lot of express. Railway Express Company would ship some, at Christmas, they would ship as many as 6 cars a day. A lot of it was Christmas wrap and books and gifts and store displays that were made here at Western Publishing.
Sure.
And Railway Express would bring in whole carloads, empty cars, spot them right over here. Western would load them, and then they would just put them on the backs of the trains, and away they'd go. And they would go straight to New York City to a specific department store. They would order an entire express car full.
So pretty much the Union Pacific, any of their big trains from western Wisconsin and beyond, they would never use this line. They would always use the line to the west of here.
They use it as a bi-directional route.
Oh, they do?
The Milwaukee sub would be one direction, and this line could go the other direction.
Oh, okay.
It depends on if there's a coal train at Oak Creek.
Oh, okay.
And then it also depends on the kind of blackout window where freight trains can't run through the Metro Line territory.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Between Kenosha and Lake Forest. There's certain
Really?
windows during morning rush and afternoon rush where freight trains aren't allowed through there.
Is that city imposed, or is that just
No,
with
that's
agreement
part
with
of the
Metro?
agreement between Union Pacific and Metro.
They can
And
from
that,
Kenosha, you said, to Lake Forest,
Lake Bluff.
Lake Bluff. Oh, interesting. Okay, so they might have to hold potentially, or just go on the
Right.
line.
You'll often see trains being held at Lake Bluff
Oh,
to cross over and get over to the Milwaukee sub.
oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that.
So this is the end of the platform. Originally, it had a large brick arch here, but like I mentioned indoors near the picture, that crumbled. So it was removed and just stubbed off like right here. What's unique about this depot, and makes it unique out of all the 375 Frost and Granger depots, very few of which still exist, this one still has both platforms, and
Yeah.
it still has almost the whole canopy, except for where the end was cut off. These canopies in about 1962 were cut back at most stations and shortened to just be connected where the station was. That was done at almost all the suburban stations. In the Chicago Northwestern Historical Society archives, we found paperwork that had Racine on the list, the AFE list, to have the platforms demolished. However, it was cut from the budget.
Thank goodness.
And that's how it got preserved. And
Okay.
this building is now on the National Register of Historic Places with the Interior Department.
Okay.
And all the restoration work is done. Has to be cleared through the Wisconsin State Historical Society. And that's one of the building things that makes Racine a really unique architectural city.
Nice. Cool. All right.
Okay, we're under the west side platform. This is owned by the city of Racine also.
Huh.
It was used for a short time. There was a tavern on the corner. They owned it, and they used it for pitching horseshoes under here. But the city bought it in anticipation of the KRM coming through. And the idea was to have it be a community space, place for a farmer's market, maybe art displays, open air concerts, just make it as part of a community space. But that hasn't happened, so right now we grow wildflowers here.
Okay.
Wildflowers are pretty.
Yeah. Very
I'll
nice.
put you down here. This building was designed over here in 3 sections. The back section, the south section, is the freight and express area, and that was occupied by the Chicago Northwestern's express room. That's that green door.
Okay.
And then the door to the south was for the Railway Express. Eventually, Railway Express took over the whole area. The next door forward, the small man door, that goes down into the basement, and that's where all the mechanical equipment is.
Okay.
The window between the 2 freight doors, that's where the scale was. There was a wagon scale built into the platform, and that they could weigh freight there.
Wow.
It was a big scale, maybe a 2-ton scale. The next door forward, that's where they kept the express trucks, the baggage wagons.
Okay.
And later on, these doors in the 70s, the signalmen moved in here, and they kept their speeders in there.
Oh.
I remember that as a kid.
Did you get to go for a ride on one?
No, never.
No?
Okay, then this middle section, right here, this is the restrooms and lounges.
Okay.
Up in the attic, though, when the restoration was done, up in the attic, that's where all the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is. And the way they got that, all those big air handlers and things up there, was they actually took them through that big door, and then they jacked them up with hydraulic jacks while the ceiling wasn't in the building.
Wow.
And then they slid them in on beams. So whoever's got to replace that that equipment in 50 years is going to have a heck of a time getting to it. And then in the basement, there's boilers. Straight across from this window, in the vending area, what's now the vending area, there was a large 2x2 foot hole with a cover, and when the cover was lifted, that was the coal bin, and there was a large coal bin underneath the platform. Coal's highly flammable, of course,
Yeah.
and you don't want that inside your building, so it was actually in a concrete bunker under the platform. When the restoration was being done, the Bobcat was driving along here one morning and actually fell through the coal hole.
Oh no!
Got stuck, and they had to fill it with gravel. So that coal cellar is completely filled with gravel.
Oh.
But it took several truckloads. Okay, now this section, the high bay section of the depot, is the waiting room. It's got the architectural ornamentation on the corners, those big stone balls. When we did the restoration, those had to be temporarily removed. Had to be lifted off with a crane. They weigh about 800 pounds each.
Wow.
And there was nothing holding them up at the time, pretty much. Just all the mortar had disintegrated, and it was just pure luck that they hadn't fallen. This building had all copper trim on it. You can see it's kind of turned green at one point. Chicago Northwestern painted it white to give it kind of more of a Georgian look. But again, it's all copper up there. The original roof was slate, and then it had copper trim all through it. That was replaced in the 1940s with cement asbestos shingles, and then these slate reproduction shingles were applied in 2005 to kind of give the look of how it used to look. And then the last section is the operator's bay. You can see the bay window over there, and that's the train order office. The safe,
that's where we were.
And then access to the tunnel underneath.
Okay.
The tunnel comes over here to this area. This is all one structure. It's connected underground. And this is where people would buy a ticket on that side and then walk underneath. And then they come up over here, and there's a waiting room on this side.
Which I think a lot of people, I want to mention that that I presume the Northwestern did what they said they ran backwards here, kind of. What would it be backwards for most railroads? For example, this would be for trains going south, and that would be for trains going north, but it was reversed.
A lot of railroads ran certain lines left-handed.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't.
So this would be for people going north to Milwaukee, would be
or
here.
West to St. Paul.
Would wait on this side, and then that would be for people going to Chicago.
Right.
Over there. Okay.
So this is that waiting room. The city restored this, and then the north section of it. This north section is there were baggage wagons in there, and they would keep mail locked in this building. You can see the big baggage doors on it.
Oh wow.
So they would keep the loaded baggage wagons in there until the train came, and then they pull them out and they put the baggage right on the train right here. Take a quick look over here. There's another building. That's the State Street or the Cooper Post Office. It was originally a post office, and then they would sort the mail there and just walk across the lane, and they'd have access to the trains.
Oh, okay.
In 1946, another large new post office was built where the transit center is now.
Okay.
That was knocked down around 2001.
Oh.
But that post office actually had a spur track running into it, and every day 2 carloads of mail were shipped out of Racine.
Okay.
A lot of that was catalogs from J.I. Case,
from
Massey Harris, from all the various manufacturers in Racine. They were all sending out catalogs, and Western Publishing was sending out catalogs, and so they could easily fill a car every day.
Wow.
In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s.
Do the trains through here today run kind of on around the same time, or is it all?
Yeah, a good time to catch trains around here.
I was just going to ask for those people who want to view trains.
Yeah, between.
So we haven't caught one.
3:30 to 5:30.
Oh, that's the time.
Yep,
okay.
That's a good time. And in the morning, there's usually 1 or 2.
Oh,
it depends what's happening on the Milwaukee sub and what's happening over here.
Okay.
With maintenance or timing of when trains are coming.
Okay, so we were just a little bit off in our time tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait another hour, you'll start seeing them.
Okay.
We could talk about this.
That's kind of unusual.
Well, for the Northwestern it isn't. For the Northwestern, these cast iron columns were made in Chicago at the Chicago shops. They're kind of a standard design, or you'll find these similar design all over the Chicago Northwestern system and the surviving depots of Frost and Granger. And then there's oak beams that hold up the roof. It became a series of taverns, and at one time, I think in the 50s, it was called the 400 Club.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, there were lots of 400 clubs near train stations in cities all through Wisconsin.
Okay.
So this is where you might begin your journey. Buy your ticket inside, come out this door, and wait here on what was a brick platform. Wait for the train, and then board right here and get on and go to Chicago.
All right. Well, thank you for the behind the scenes tour. That was very awesome. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that tour here of the Racine Depot with Keith, myself, and Robert. There goes my hat. That's all right.